Welcome back for October and enjoy the music in the background. The first two pieces of music are from a series called Bible Black. With that said, this is a horror themed pickups for the month of October. First up, we have on PS4 White Day, which is technically only a T rated game, also has a lot of weird DLC stuff. It's a very interesting horror game, though it's more meant to mess with you psychologically. Out of the games on this list, is probably arguably one of the least scary, but still, it is a cool game in my opinion, and you can get for a reasonable price. And there are definitely a lot of people that feel this game is maybe one of the more underrated of this past generation. But the first pickup is White Day. Next up, we have The Evil Within 2, which is arguably, by a lot of people's opinions, the best horror game of the 8th generation. And after trying a little bit of the first game, I'm definitely looking forward to trying out The Evil Within 2. Definitely a cool looking game. Next up, we have for the Wii U, believe it or not, Zombie U. A lot of people's opinions are this is arguably considered to be the best port of the game, just because of the ability how you can use the touchscreen and everything. Actually uses the game to better potential than the other ports did. So by many people's opinions, this is considered to be the definitive version of this game. Plus, it's nice to get at least a couple of horror games actually for the Wii U. It's pretty nice too. Next up, we have many people's opinions one of the best suspense horror games of the 7th generation. Of course, being also a Microsoft exclusive, Alan Wake, which is by many people's opinions almost a masterpiece of a game. Even one of my personal favorite critics, Yahtzee, has stated before this game is actually solid. And I remember playing this game once or twice, a friend's copy, and I'm just glad to finally own it so I can actually do a full playthrough of this game myself. And yeah, this is a game I've wanted to have in my collection for quite some time, so it's nice to finally have it. Next up, quickly a bit off unique that I came across, Nightmare Creatures 2, which I have never played the second game, as you see their music by Rob Zombie. A suitable, I think, music artist for a game like this, but I still prefer the more just creepy environmental like classical music and stuff in my horror games, just saying. Like classic Resident Evil, Silent Hill. But with that said, still is definitely a cool game to finally have and finally get to try Nightmare Creatures 2. I have played the original Nightmare Creatures on PS1 probably 18, 19 times, give or take, and I love the game for even all of its badness. It's a very cool. So yeah, I'm actually, and I may eventually do a review of Nightmare Creatures 2. Next up, we have a game that did get a remaster not too long ago. In Europe, this is known as Fahrenheit. An interesting game. It definitely was, I think, in some ways a bit of revolutionary of its time period. Sadly, today, it's weird though, a lot of people don't remember this game, which is unfortunate, but I do remember this game from going to Blockbuster back in the day, running this as well as many other horror games. I miss Blockbuster. With that said, enjoy next up in the music background, Silent Hill theme. Next up we have the sequel to a lot of people consider a great game called The Suffering, which I still need to get my hands on. This is The Suffering Ties That Bind. Definitely interesting cover art, interesting creature. I will say the original Suffering will mess with your head like crazy. With the whispering and stuff in the music and stuff, really mess with you psychologically. Now, I don't know how this game, since I never played the sequel, I don't know how this game overall measures up creepiness-wise compared to the original, The Suffering. But with that said, it is interesting being made by Midway at the time, before they went out of business. Next up, going with the music, Silent Hill 4, The Room. Yeah, I've never played any of the Silent Hill games on original Xbox, so I am glad to finally have The Room. A lot of people have said this version actually plays very good, which, though also, they also released, of course, Silent Hill 2, considered to be the superior version for Xbox. Now, weirdly enough, they would not release Silent Hill 3, though, on the original Xbox, which is weird. Funny enough, the Xbox versions of these games are far cheaper than the PS2 originals. So just a heads up to collectors. Next up, we have an interesting, unique sequel game called Obscure The Aftermath, which Obscure is a horror series of 2 games known for their high difficulty. And interesting music choices also. Next up, we have the original Obscure, with music from, as you see, Sum 41, a classic game back in the day. And yeah, this game was known for its uniqueness, but also its difficulty. Compared to many other horror games at the time, this was considered to be one of the hardest, hands down. And last but not least, I wanted to save the coolest for last. And that is Echo Night Beyond, which is a horror game that takes place in outer space, which is really cool in my opinion. And yeah, as you see, was made by From Software before Demon Souls was created. They were doing these Echo Night games, which I believe there was 3 total in the series. But I'll get ready to chop this video. Hopefully you enjoyed this horror-themed edition of pickups for the month of October. And hope everyone stays safe the rest of October, and, well, have a happy upcoming Halloween. See you all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube channel.